Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. We are going to be continuing talking about Kindred today with Candace.
Hi.
I don't even know what to say. These chapters are huge.
Yeah,
Like a lot happens,
a ton.
and I kind of love it. But also, a lot's going on. So much is happening.
Arguably too much for Dana.
I know. I just can Dana just get like a nap, like a good solid nap,
A single one.
single one, please. What would be in your go bag if you were getting transported back? Because for me, it would be a lot of snacks.
So I don't know. I'd be so conflicted because part of me would be like, well, I don't want to like spook the horses and freak people out
Hmm.
by bringing all of these modern wares
Yeah,
to the past. So like no Ziploc Sammy bags, no, you know,
yeah,
magazines, no iPods
I
or
know.
phones of any kind. Like I don't even. I actually thought about that. I was like, what would be worthwhile?
Hmm.
You can't bring a book, which is my go-to. I'd
I
always bring a
know.
book. Can't have a book.
Yeah.
I guess I would definitely bring a like pencil and paper.
Yep.
Um, Maybe my glass dip pen since that looks sort of old-fashioned, I guess, kind of. And long dresses that I don't
Yeah.
own.
I'm glad I live next to Goodwill, I guess, because I'd be
Yeah.
making a stop over there.
Oh my God, can you imagine if you disappeared at Goodwill?
Could you imagine if you reappeared and it's like closing hours?
Oh God, no.
Uh,
That sounds like some Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. I'm
yeah.
not into it.
No, I'm also not into it. Okay, I
No.
would make Daniel go to Goodwill for me.
There you go.
And
And you
uh
certainly wouldn't drag him back to the past with you.
no, definitely not. I would literally push him away from me. Like wrestle away from him, jump, lock myself in the bathroom and then go.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry he loses access to the bathroom for like 5 minutes while I'm gone for 2 days or whatever.
Oh well.
But I would have a lot of like those Nutri-Grain strawberry
Mm-hmm.
things because I would not want to eat anything
No,
that could give me like salmonella.
no. Just the idea of the flies situation
Yeah.
outside bums me out.
Is that malaria? Is that
Yeah, you can get malaria I think from flies and from
hmm.
mosquitoes. But like flies
Yeah.
like are attracted to poop and people don't realize it, but they
Hmm.
have little like feet. They have like
Yeah.
little feet and hands. So they like are all over the poo and then they go all over your dish and now your dish has poo in it because of this fly.
Disgusting.
And they lay their eggs and stuff too all the time, willy nilly, wherever they want. So for all of those reasons and no refrigerators, the whole thing sounds like a disaster.
Yeah. I'd also want a mosquito net.
Some off skin tastic spray,
Yeah. Lots of bug spray. Wasp
deodorant.
spray that I would be spraying at men that get too close to me, right in
Yep,
the eyeballs.
yep,
Uh,
all of
all,
that.
all of that.
Yeah, you'd need like a gigantic suitcase.
Yeah. I'd have one of those like hiking backpacks,
Hmm.
with the wasp spray like right in the side pocket so I could
Yeah,
easily like bend
easy
grab
access.
spray.
Yeah,
Yeah. Leg holster of wasp spray,
yep.
to be honest.
That sounds smart to me.
Right?
Yep.
I don't see any wrong happening.
No.
That just horrifies me. This entire idea horrifies me.
Yeah. Lots of anxiety. I had a
Mhm.
dream the other night that I was thrown back into time and I didn't remember what happened because I think I got immediately terrified. Because I've been reading this book, I had like
Mhm.
a crazy dream. It was really scary from what I remember.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I recently had a dream that I went for a run. Don't know why. Woke up and I was like, huh, it's weird.
Dear reader, if you're out there listening, please do not be deterred from reading this book because I had a weird dream. I have weird dreams about all kinds of stuff. So please still read the book because it's excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. Highly recommend.
Hmm.
It will be one of those that you might have to like take breaks throughout though, because
Yeah,
oof, big
definitely
oof.
take some breaks. Bring some tissues
Hmm.
and some kind of, if you have a cat or a dog near you to
Hmm.
pet for emotional support, I recommend that.
Yeah, and get like your favorite reading snack.
Hmm.
Mine is I like dried cereal as my reading snack.
Ooh, me too,
Yeah,
especially Life.
I haven't had Life, actually.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
I usually do a lot of like Frosted Flakes.
Also good. Honeycomb as well. Very good.
Mm.
Dried snack.
I like the what are those called? Cheerios too.
Hmm.
Very good, very good. My not so hand clean reading snack that I also like is popcorn with chocolate chips.
Popcorn and chocolate chips.
Have you ever had that?
I've never heard of such things. I've heard of people putting M&Ms though. I think that's probably
Same
close
vibe.
enough. Yeah.
Same vibe. The chocolate chips usually get a little melty though. It's very
Yeah.
good. Okay, man, I need you to pick a location, my dude.
She's having a great time climbing you like you're a mountain.
I think we trimmed her nails recently. She's not able to hold on at all.
She can't get a grip. She's probably so mad.
Getting back into the book, back into the reading, back into our chapter. So at this point, it's been 8 days for her to get sent back in time again. She got, I guess, the only way I could call it is like a little vacation from the antebellum South, I guess. Like, just enough where her guard was probably starting to like get down. And then she's like, oh, back up. Okay.
So that's like one of my biggest issues too, is like she comes back, right? And she's like walking, she's like, oh, I gotta, like so she comes back and like she sees everything, but like after that first part that we're about to talk about, sorry if you need to cut this, I'm like,
yeah, it's fine.
But like when Dana's talking about how she's like walking back, like when she sees Rufus fighting or whatever, right? And she goes to get help. And she's walking up toward the house and she's like, yeah, I mean, it feels like I'm walking home. And I was like, ooh, nope. Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. Stockholm.
Well, it's like the other place isn't her home. She just moved in there. She hasn't even unpacked yet. Like, no wonder that other place feels like home. Like, she's been able to spend like 2 months there at this point, you know?
Like, that's brutal. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, though. I feel like that's a larger metaphor for who she is and what's going on with her, right? So, like, she doesn't have a place of her own.
Yeah.
Like, she has no place of her own. Like, she doesn't belong anywhere. She's like, oh, I got home and I felt like I belonged there. But then she goes back and she's like, I kind of feel like I belong here.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't have both, man. You need to find a place of your own. Like, none of this belongs to you.
Move out. Break up with Kevin. Like, get a cute little apartment. Oh my God.
Please. For the love of God.
So Dana doesn't immediately recognize Rufus, though, when she gets sucked back in time. She referred to him as a white man, which I thought was really interesting. Because it just kind of shows how much time has passed. Because he was like still a child-ish last time she was there. And now he's an adult. So this is like, in my head, we're thinking at least like 5-6 years have passed, right?
Yep.
So there you go. But Kevin is fighting a black man and losing. And I was like, or not Kevin, wow. Rufus. That, okay. Yeah. Rufus is fighting a black man and losing.
Yes.
So then, turns out the black man is the husband of a black woman who has a torn dress. And I'm like, this is not looking good at all. No. And this moment cemented my feelings for Rufus.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's a good little kid. Like, he's, and it's like baby Hitler was still like a Hitler eventually.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Turns out the woman is Alice. And she tells, Rufus also is like knocked unconscious at this point. So she tells Dana and it's like, yeah, so Rufus wanted to be with me more than I wanted to be with him. And I was like, oh great. My worst fear has been realized in this moment.
Yep.
So Dana's like, basically, we can get from the context clues that Rufus kind of tried to rape Alice. If he didn't succeed, we're not sure.
Right.
And so Dana's like, listen, you need to go. But as Alice is leaving with as Alice is leaving with her husband, she turns to Dana and says, just so you know, Kevin's gone north looking for work. And I was like, of course you did, Kevin, because you can't wait for your wife. Like, are you a moron? Like,
I don't understand.
Can you not?
I don't understand.
Right? I was like, you could so easily find work or something.
anywhere.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. Like, we find out later in this chapter, there's a whole ass other farm in between the Waylands and where she finds
Mhm.
Rufus. Like, you couldn't have found work anywhere, man.
Also, like,
There's no
yeah,
town you could have ridden into.
she's literally like, he's educated, he could be someone's tutor or something,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like,
Run a schoolhouse in town, anything.
anything. Like, it's probably
Mm-mm.
so easy to find a job for an educated white man. Like, I
Yep.
and also there wasn't anything closer than, like, the couple towns over
Right.
that he needed to go, like, I think she said he was in, like, Virginia or something?
Yeah, he was far.
Yeah.
Like, he was pretty far. Like, she said that, oh yeah, he went north and he's not
Yeah,
around.
he's, like, states away
Mhm.
in a time where there's no actual great way to travel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so then Rufus wakes up after Alice and her husband leave and they're gonna try and, like, live free, you know?
Mhm.
Um, Rufus is like, "Oh, I'm super happy you came back." But he wants to make Alice's husband pay.
Right.
And I'm like,
He's obsessed.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see that he still maintains his respect
Mhm.
for her, for Dana.
Yeah.
He's happy to see her. It's clear he still holds affection,
Mhm.
but his rage at being, taken advantage of, feeling taken advantage
Mhm.
of by Alice, which, like, clearly she was just trying to leave him alone.
Yeah.
She was not taking advantage. And her husband Isaac, right? Like, making a fool out of him.
Mhm.
Like, he's hell bent on getting that justice.
Yeah.
And that was something that, like, really I was very surprised by
I
that
know.
he would still be so, like, vehement because, he grows up and, like, in the previous time when she sees him, like, you think that he's learned his lesson, like, especially with, like, the way that his mom
Mhm.
treats Dana, right, when she's around in the previous episode, like, of her, of her arriving, like, he realizes that, like, Dana isn't anyone's property and that people
Mhm.
shouldn't necessarily be property, and, like, he accepts that that's the way things are,
Mhm.
but recognizes, like, I'm friends with Alice, I'm friends with Nigel. Like, he talks about the people that, that matter to him, how, Aunt Sarah cares about him. Like, he clearly understands that this shouldn't be the status quo,
Mhm.
but, like, seems unwillingly accepting of it, right?
Mhm.
But now you see how he's, like, talking about how he owns this free woman.
Mhm.
Alice is free. She was born free. And he's like, she better be with me. Like, what makes you think you have any kind of entitlement? Like, it wouldn't be better if the woman were his slave,
Mhm.
right? It would be just as gross and disgusting. But, like, by law, I could at least kind of understand what he's saying despite not agreeing with it and thinking it's abhorrent and absolutely revolting,
Yeah.
right? But, like, this is a free woman.
Mhm.
So even the fact that she's free isn't enough. Like, he sees her and thinks he can put upon her because she's black. Like,
I
period.
just had a worse thought too.
Mhm.
I'm seeing some similarities from the way that Kevin chased Dana and the fact that Kevin was alone with him for probably at least 5 years. I can almost guarantee that Kevin has a hand in the way he treats Alice.
I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. Even if it's just because he knows and Alice knows
Mhm.
that Kevin is Dana's husband.
Mhm.
And when she's talking to Alice, when she's standing there, Alice admits that. She's like, "Oh, he used to talk about you all the time
Mhm.
and your husband
Mhm.
and Kevin, right? Talking about how you guys were married and it was okay."
Yeah.
And, like, in his own like fucked up, spoiled, privileged
Mhm.
way, he's trying to get through, this can work, I've seen it work,
Yeah.
right? But, like, he doesn't respect her at
Mhm.
all. And, like, Kevin respects Dana bare minimum,
Mhm.
right? Bare minimum. But, like, he at least respects her enough to, like, understand that she's talented, you see her potential,
Mhm.
live with her, in his mind as equals, even though they're not
Yeah.
equals or he would never ask her to do his typing and shit, right? His
Mhm.
menial labor. Um and I think that, like, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, like, Rufus as a kid, right? Those are formative years he spent with him. I think he looked at that and was like, "Oh, okay, so I can have anybody I want,
Mhm.
and she'd be lucky to be with me. Like, Dana is lucky to have Kevin."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And, like, that's essentially what he goes and then says to Alice, and Alice is like, "Get out of here. We're just friends.
Yeah.
You're lucky we're friends at all. There's somebody I'm interested in."
Mhm.
And instead of just being like, "Oh, okay, I get it," he's like, "You have no right to turn me down. I'm a white man."
Yeah. Yep.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah. So Rufus also says that he would have married Alice if they were in Dana's time.
Mm-hmm.
Horrifying.
Yep.
Um,
As though her feelings would change if it were legal.
yeah, literally.
Does it make you like more of a prince, you think, if it's legal, sir? I don't think so.
I don't know. Because it's like, it's
No.
obvious at this point that she has no feelings for Rufus at all. This is a very one
Yeah.
sided interest.
Other than disgust. And
Yeah.
it's a shame because she was his friend.
Yeah.
The last time Dana was there, they were friends. But he's ruined it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Dana makes Rufus promise that a white man attacked him so that Alice and her husband can at least start getting away.
Yep.
Rufus does not like this idea, but like Dana literally basically was like, I will let you rot on this floor.
Yeah.
No one's gonna find you. You're in the middle of the woods. I will let you rot here unless you agree to this. Which, like, I love that for Dana. I like that she was like, I'm still gonna try and protect everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, after like way too long, she gets Rufus to agree to this.
Way too
Way too
long.
long.
So much convincing it takes.
Literally.
And I will say I think it's interesting that like he still respects her despite the fact that all this time has
Mhm.
passed and he's become a different person. But how hard it is and how long it takes for her to convince him
Mhm.
immediately was a red flag for me.
Yep.
I was like, he's not who you think he is,
Oh
man.
yeah. I was like, I don't
Because
trust
before
him.
he would just shut the fuck up and hear her, right?
Yeah.
But he's lived 5 years as a grown man,
Mhm.
a grown white man, right? Who we come to find out later has one slave that he owns.
Yeah.
So like he feels like he's set. He doesn't have a need,
Mhm.
to be reined in at
I
all.
know. It's, oh my god. I hate
Hmm.
Rufus after this chapter.
Yeah, for sure.
So we get there, Nigel and Carrie recognize Dana, which I was very excited about because we love them. They're delightful. And they're married and expecting a baby.
Hmm.
Very exciting. So Tom lets her stay as long as she works. But he does not know what Dana is and does not really trust her now because she literally disappeared in front of his eyeballs.
Correct.
So Sarah came in to say hi to Dana and check in on Rufus and tells Dana that Margaret is not there anymore. Really
Hmm.
spilling the tea out, which is very cool. Um, so we kind of find out that Margaret is gone because of the fact that like she's having these two babies, or she had two babies and they both died,
Hmm.
and then she
Yep.
like went off the deep end, I guess,
Yeah.
and then went to go live with her sister.
Yeah, and it made everybody crazy. And then in exchange, they get this overseer, her
Yeah,
brother,
who sucks.
who's
Oh
awful.
yeah.
Yeah.
So also Dana gives Rufus some aspirin, which is kind of fun.
It's
Yeah,
generous.
I was like, ration that aspirin, Dana. Like,
What I love though is that she's like, I have a big ass bottle of aspirin, so I might as well give him two.
yeah.
I was like, that's the right way to put
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
That's it right there. If you had a little ass bottle of aspirin, I would hope that you wouldn't have
Oh,
given
I
him
would
any.
not give him a single ounce. I'd be like, suffer, buddy. I'd be honestly like everybody that was also like enslaved. I'd be like, hey, just like take this. Here you go.
Mm, seriously.
So, Rufus seems to be doing a lot better the next morning, and then he shares his breakfast with Dana, which is really weird for me.
So it wasn't weird for me because they have such a close
Hmm.
relationship from when he was a
Yeah.
kid. And I feel like him sharing his breakfast with her is like him being like, see, we're cool, like we're
Hmm.
good, and like we've got a vibe. Like him acknowledging their relationship.
Yeah.
Especially because when she tells Sarah, oh no, I already ate,
Hmm.
she like rolls her eyes and is like, well, I put enough on the plate, so like I put enough on the
Yeah.
tray, for him to share with you, I guess. Like she had her own plate of food downstairs waiting for her because no one thought that he was going to be generous.
Yeah.
And I think that like the people that are under him and his dad's watch, right, his and his dad's watch, like they know how he's soft with
Hmm.
Dana. Like they remember that he's soft with Dana, but they still warn her.
Yeah. I think it was weird just because of the night's events. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was weird that that was the first time they've ever like sat and shared a breakfast together right
Yeah.
after, like moments after he was on the brink of death.
Yep.
It's weird.
Yep. It's super weird.
Yeah.
And like I also found it interesting that like they like Tom Whalen, for example, right?
Mhm.
He knows that Dana is different
Mhm.
because he's spoken to Rufus, he's spoken to Kevin, right? He knows that Dana is different, and he allows her to be,
Mhm.
right? Despite brutalizing her for being different, for being smart and educated.
Mhm.
This time he's like, you're permitted to take care of his cuts and his bruises.
Yeah.
But like he seems indifferent to whether or not his son like lived or died. Because
Yeah.
he's like, what are you even doing here? And she's like, I just saved your son's life. And he's like, what? I should be grateful.
Trash
And
bag.
she's like, I mean, it's your kid, so
Yeah, literally.
I would think so.
What a trash bag.
And you're like, man, like I don't really have any sympathy for your son because he's awful.
Mhm.
But he's seemingly not as terrible as you.
Yeah.
So
Like, slightly dialed down, right? Like,
mhm,
and then also Rufus is like, "Hey, how are you not appearing to age?" And she kind of explains like the time on her side,
mhm,
which is fun. But then the doctor comes in and starts immediately like talking down to Dana, which is the
yep,
weirdest thing. Like, have you ever been in a room where that happened? Like, probably. I feel like we
yeah,
all have, but like, I
mhm,
was so infuriated because I was just thinking about every time this has ever happened to me, where like
mhm,
someone talks about me in a room while I'm there. I was just like,
yeah,
oh, in a rage. I was not. I hated because it's like we haven't seen that in the book yet. People always address Dana
right.
until that doctor was like, "Oh, is she
Because he doesn't
educated?"
know anything
I
about her.
know.
He just looks at her and is like, "Oh, a black person, a
Yeah.
slave, obviously." Like he doesn't even consider that like she's done it. Like he arrives and Rufus has been bandaged, right?
Mhm.
Better than he's capable of bandaging him.
Mhm.
And he asks a bunch of questions about how she knows that his fever is gone and all this stuff. Comments on how surprisingly smart she is.
Yeah.
Like it is 2021. 2021 our time.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times people have been surprised that I'm smart. It happens literally all the time. I was in a meeting just the other day
Mhm.
and somebody tried to be like they looked at how young I look even though I'm not as young as I appear,
Mhm.
right? And they were basically like, "Oh, well, you're not really that experienced. You don't really know as much as me because like I've been in this industry a long time." And it was a man,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want to like be rude or anything like that because like I'm working, with this person and I don't want to, be awful, but I absolutely said something to people that were in charge after because I was really shocked.
Yeah.
I was like, "How can you just kind of like cast aside any knowledge or intellect that somebody has and instead just kind of like open an umbrella of stereotype and be like, you don't fit under this. This is wild." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you either exceed or do not meet my expectations for someone of your race or
Mhm.
gender. You know what I'm saying? Like how can you be so reductive? But it still totally happens and it's
My
awful.
favorite thing recently is because people assume a lot because I work as a waitress that
Of
I'm
course.
uneducated. My
Yeah, that you have no other prospects and are not doing that because you just need to be able to feed
Yeah, my
yourself.
favorite thing
And
is
it's one of
telling
many
them
jobs you
that
have.
I, am about to graduate with my MBA, and then
Yeah. It's really hard.
yeah.
I bet. I bet it's
Oh,
really hard. I
it's
was I
beautiful.
was a hostess
What?
in graduate school, so
What?
I feel you.
It's been fun because I immediately because people get so uncomfortable, I get tipped better, which is always fun for me. Or,
Good.
like, the, like, way they talk to me immediately changes, you know?
Good.
Like, it
I mean, that's also sad though because it's like just like let's say you didn't have the time or the money or the ability to have the loans to go to college and
Yeah.
get your MBA, but we're absolutely capable of
Mhm.
it. It would be like fine for that person to talk to someone like that. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's actually something I have a huge issue with. Like when celebrities cut up in person, like in public or
Mhm.
whatever. I never understand why the public is always like, "Oh, we should forgive that person for saying that or dropping the N bomb or saying bad stuff about trans people or whatever.
Mhm.
We should forgive. That's not what they meant." People are bending over backward trying to like, fucking dream up what they meant.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Even though they're celebrities, you're never going to know what they actually meant unless they tell
Yeah.
you. You know what I mean? But then like go to like Publix and get mad at some abuela that's like behind the cash register and has been on her feet for 12 hours and is like super put upon all day and doesn't say thank you, come again when it's time for you to like ring up your groceries and leave, and then you report her to her manager because she was rude to you. But it's totally fine for this like multimillionaire to be as rude as they want.
Yeah, literally, though.
You know what I mean? Like we hold people to such a different standard than like we actually should,
Mhm.
And I think that like this is like where all of that comes from. Like that person just looked at her and was like, black and a woman and probably a slave. I don't need to talk to her.
Such a trash bag.
And that like that hierarchy like still totally exists, like I used to hostess, in Meisner Park, which is like all rich people,
Mhm.
right? All fancy people that are very hobnobby. And most of my guests were really nice. They were really friendly, they were
Mhm.
sweet. But like the people that were really, really rich, the people that would like pull up at valet with their like Ferrari or whatever, their Porsche or their Rolls Royce or whatever, like they would just walk in and seat themselves. Like they wouldn't even like look at me. It was like I wasn't even a factor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they'd give their order to somebody and not like look at you, like not look you in the
Mhm.
eye. And then when it would come, that and if it was wrong for some reason, or they felt like maybe they had ordered something they didn't actually order, which like was almost never the case, they just fucked up themselves. It wasn't the kitchen. It was
Yeah.
like you ordered something complicated, and now this is what you
Mhm.
get, and you don't like it, and that's not our fault, right? I remember that they would make a stink. That was like the only time you get them to look you in the face, is if like something bad happened, and then they would like rain down like hellfire and damnation on
Mhm.
you. You know what I mean? And you're like, yo, I make $4.50 an hour plus tips, man.
Yep.
Like please just take a seat, sir. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ma'am, please calm down. You know what I mean? Like, and for someone like you or someone like me, like we can escape. We have somewhere else to go.
Mhm.
But like, what about that person that just doesn't want to have to like be a lawyer? They passed the bar, they went to
Mhm.
law school, it didn't fucking make them happy.
Mhm.
They want to be in hospitality. Like you're gonna treat them like garbage because they want to make people happy at their job. Like that logic, it defies my understanding. I just can't.
We find out also that Nigel tried and ran a runaway ran sorry. Blah, blah, blah. So we find out that Nigel tried to run away once, did not work out for him.
Yep.
So I guess Tom was very, very happy that he found like he decided to be with Carrie because he was gonna like try and sell Nigel. Um
Mm-hmm.
because, runaway. Uh and then also Dana brought a history textbook in time with her, which I kind of forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she brought it because it has a map in it. And Rufus is
Yep.
like, hey, you need to throw this away because if my dad finds it, like it's gonna be a problem.
Yep.
Um but so she tears out the map, throws it away, and Rufus is like, no, you need to throw out the map too. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the first like well, not the first, one of the many red flags I was getting from Rufus. I was like,
Absolutely. Because for the first time, he doesn't prioritize Dana's actual safety.
yeah,
He prioritizes her perceived safety. Oh, if someone finds you with that, they're going to feel away,
yeah,
right? Rather than like the other things that he might have said, which was, oh, go around the side door. I know for a fact you're going to be discovered.
hmm
Like before, he was giving her actionable advice. Now it's just like, oh, this is good for
hmm
you. Well, someone is going to have a problem with that.
yeah,
And what he's not saying is the someone who's going to have a problem with it is me.
literally. And it's like he's
Yes.
just basically being like, oh, don't look that way, and he yeah, I don't even know. Like it's just he's not even doing a good job of hiding it that he's trying to like keep her around.
So I think though that part of that is his MO, honestly. Because if we think about Rufus, the last time she saw
hmm
him, how does he treat his mother?
Like get out of here terribly.
Yes, but he also kind of just does what she wants so that she'll go away,
Yeah.
right? He like tells her what she wants to hear,
hmm
and then when he finally can't take it anymore, then he lashes out,
Yeah.
right? That's how he behaves toward his mom. So right now, he has Dana, somebody who's kind of like a mother figure or an older
hmm
sister figure to him, right? She's like, "Oh, well, I have all these means to stay safe and all these means to escape, and I know that you're equally interested in that as I am because you don't want anything bad to happen to me, right?" And he's like, "Of course, but leave that map and put it in the fire."
Yeah.
Right? And he's saying like all this stuff to her, and he keeps trying to bring it back to, "Well, I'm worried about
hmm
you. What if a white man catches you and I'm not around or
hmm
whatever? You don't have Kevin anymore." Right? He brings up all these like reasons why she needs to be safe and isn't being safe and
Yeah.
whatever, but like he fails to mention the fact that like he's the one who has a problem
hmm
with it. And like something that happens in this piece of the chapter too that I really liked, what but was also very hard for me. So she trusts him, right? She trusts him implicitly.
hmm
He's like, oh, she's like, oh, I'm gonna write a letter, do you mind? She's at his desk, he sees her take out like a clear ballpoint pen and is like, what the fuck is that? That's amazing, that's not a quill and
hmm
ink. Like, oh my goodness, right? So you see that he's kind of taking her in.
hmm
But part of me is like, are you just cataloging what she's got? Because he rummages through her stuff. She's like, oh, can you pass me something out of my bag? And he goes through it.
Yeah.
Like, he feels fine to just like go through her stuff. And like, if it were anyone else, I'd go, oh, that's a term of endearment,
Mhm.
right? Like, the first time your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, whoever, goes through your bag, like, that's a big moment,
Mhm.
right? Because you trust them enough that like, if you find all these weird dust bunnies and creepy stuff that I keep in my bag because I'm a weirdo,
Yeah.
that you're going to judge me for that, right? That you're going to judge me for my linty gum
Mhm.
and stuff rolling around in there. But like, in this case, it kind of gives him ammunition.
Yeah.
And like, as he's kind of like looking through the book or whatever, he even calls it out. He says, this looks like a bunch of abolitionist trash.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so you know what abolitionists are? Okay, so then you know that there are people out there who want to abolish slavery. Like, you know that.
Yeah.
You know that freedom is like around the corner, because she's like concerned he's going to see Sojourner Truth's "Ain't I a Woman" speech, right? Or any of the other like amazing, incredible speeches that she delivered,
Mhm.
right? She's like Dana's like, oh no, he can't see that,
Mhm.
right? He can't see the history that's coming for him.
Yeah.
He's not going to understand. He's not going to process it, right? And she's correct. He's not going to
Mhm.
understand. But like, again, like, why wouldn't he want to see that stuff? You know what I mean? I feel like part of her knows that there's still a risk, or she would be fine with him seeing
Mhm.
that stuff. Because when he was younger and she would say, hey, so this is like, even when he was questioning Kevin, where are you from? Oh, 1976. What's that about? And he asks about California, and Kevin's like, oh, yeah, California comes
Yeah.
someday. And then someday there's this president or
Mhm.
whatever. And he gives these like milestones of like white American history,
Mhm.
right? And Rufus accepts them. But now, like, she even brings up, and like, this is something that I love, that this is kind of like a new genre that she's invented,
Mhm.
that Butler has invented. Like, Octavia Butler, I think before this moment, there was historical fiction
Mhm.
and there was sci-fi, right? So sci-fi obviously is, imagine the extraordinary, the otherworldly, and the supernatural,
Mhm.
right? Which is why time travel falls under that. It's not necessarily supernatural, but it's definitely extraordinary and it's definitely
Mhm.
otherworldly, right? And then historical fiction, that the whole point of that is to examine the past dictated specifically by a time and a setting,
Mhm.
right? So like, they're kind of like opposites of each other almost, because one is about like what has yet to happen and what could happen, and then the other one is about what did happen and how we can reimagine it to be different,
Mhm.
right? So you're getting like this juxtaposition of these two incredible genres mashed up with each other in this entire book,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that's kind of like almost, symbolic of Dana's experience in
Mhm.
general, right? It's like a mashing of two worlds together. And I really, really love, like, I can't remember where it is. I think it's right around this time though, when she's talking about like her books and stuff and him finding
Mhm.
them. When she talks about like, she's like, yeah, he doesn't know this, but I do. I know that, there's a woman who will one day be known as Harriet
Mhm.
Tubman that is, trying to figure out how to free the people free these people and send them, get them sent up to the north to find the ultimate freedom, right? She's like, I know that, south of here, there's a young man named Frederick Douglass who's going to one day grow up and be one of the greatest abolitionists the world's ever
Mhm.
seen. I know that there's a man to the west of here, or to the south. I think it's to I think it was to the west.
Mhm.
She's like, to the west of here, there's a young man named Nat Turner who's about to be willing to do
Mhm.
anything to free people. And Nat Turner, obviously, he led one of the largest and most bloody slave rebellions,
Mhm.
right, of all time. So like, there are these people that she references that are like actual historical figures that are still, she said Nat Turner is biding his time,
Yeah.
right? So like, these people exist right now. Like,
Mhm.
she's there with those people. She could go see them right now. But like, none of them have ascended to their greatness
Yeah.
yet. They're all still slaves. And like, in your head, you're like, how do you reconcile that? Like, I grew up, these are like my heroes. These are people that were, like, I get that they're slaves. Like, obviously they must have had to have been in order to kind of like ascend to
Mhm.
the place where they end up, right? And to help free people and to, usher in this new age of America.
Mhm.
But like, you don't think about it like that, right? You don't think like, oh, I could drive down the road in a horse and buggy and fucking see this
Yeah.
person. You know what I mean? So she says all of that, and I'm just like, man, this is so cool. Like, it's really cool how she like kind of butts that up, how she butts up like history and historical fiction
Mhm.
up against sci-fi, because like, it creates so much more possibility
Yeah.
for her in a situation where she has like no options. And then like later on, something else that was really powerful to me, I don't like highlighting books, so I just wrote it down and then I took a picture of it and put it in my
Same,
phone
same, same,
because I
same.
don't like to, I don't like to dog ear. It gets me like really nervous. But there's a part where she says, once he finally wins that argument,
Mhm.
right? When he's like, listen, like, you gotta tear up that map, you gotta tear up the book, you gotta do everything, right? Someone's gonna think you're trying to escape. They're not gonna believe anything you say with all these books, let alone that you can read them, whatever. He tells her like it's not safe. So finally she tears up the book, right? And she throws it into the
Mhm.
fire. and she brings up that Holocaust
Mhm.
comparison again, and she's like, her thoughts kind of shift to, Nazis burning
Mhm.
books. And then she says, this is the quote: "Repressive societies always seem to understand the danger of wrong ideas." And that chilled me to my
Mhm.
core, because we are fighting in 2021 to teach children the actual truth about America.
Mhm.
Repressive societies always seem to understand the danger of wrong ideas.
Mhm. And I think it's interesting too because she was basically in that moment comparing Rufus to a Nazi. You
Yeah.
know? Like whether she
Yeah.
meant it or not, she knew what was coming for Rufus.
Yep. Yep. And then how does he end it all? Like, he ends it all going, "Oh, you know what? You're not going to need that map anyway
Yeah.
because you're home." Ah!
No. I
Ah!
know. I was like, I'm scared. I'm scared.
Oh, she's home. She's home. She's home.
Nah,
She's
dog.
home. This is what I'm saying. The fact that he can even look at her and say, "Oh, you're home,"
Mhm.
that means he does not at all appreciate or understand or honor the idea of a freed slave, no matter
Mhm.
what. A free black person is an idea that he cannot get his head around, despite having this whole relationship with Dana. Like, she's thinking that all this time, all this sacrifice she's making, right? All the crying and the actual literal wounds
Mhm.
that she has, scars that she has on her body, are making a difference with this person. And he still basically reduces her to property by saying this
Yup.
is her home, a place where she has no actual room, she has no agency, she has nobody on her side. She's basically a slave.
Mhm.
She's as good as a slave
Mhm.
there. And he's like, "You're home."
Yep. Yeah, he did
Oh,
say
okay.
that.
Oh,
Oh,
all right. I see. I see how this is going. I'm looking at the book and I'm like, Dana,
run.
Dana, I hope you hear this, man.
Mhm.
I hope you're hearing him. I hope you get it. I hope you're
Literally.
not like, "Oh, I'm sure he's fine." But she wants to believe the best. She doesn't want to
Mhm.
be somebody that's just like, "Oh, I'm going to panic for panic's sake." She's trying to keep her wits about her. Like, I understand how this happens, but man, like, being 2021 Candace,
Mhm.
I'm just like, anxiety.
All right, so that's all we're going to talk about today. Lots of heavy hitting, lots of talking. We're going to have to finish the rest of this chapter, hopefully the rest in the next episode or in multiple episodes. We'll see because there's a lot to talk
It's a
about.
lot.
Yep, it's definitely a lot. But Candace, where can all the people of the internet find you?
So you guys can find me in a lot of places. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, and several other locations, actually, at Candace the Magnificent, all one word. You can find me on Twitter or Discord at that Candace Girl. Definitely go by YouTube if you guys want. You can check out my channel. I do ice cream reviews right now. I'm going to be expanding that content to include maybe some book analyses, since this has been such a blast, and some ukulele videos. You can also head over to the Dungeon Jedi Masters podcast for Scattered Choices. It's a Star Wars 5e themed Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role playing game that we have turned into more of like a news show, like a news radio show. Or you can look up Valor Studios, Valore, and find me playing Jameson Freeman in their take on Deadlands, and that's going to be back in 2022. And then I'm also going to be in January 2022 in a shorter series for Dungeons and Dragons. So again, that's through Valor Studios. So please check me
Yeah,
out.
do it. You're wonderful. Everyone's going to love it.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
But we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you'd like to support this podcast, please consider joining the Patreon. You get exclusive episodes every single month, as well as a bunch of fun bonus content. So if you want to check us out there, it's all donation based. So you can join for as low as $3 a month and get access to a lot of cool stuff, as well as the patron only Discord, which is a whole lot of fun. So please consider joining. It helps support the podcast and you get some cool stuff. Also, if you'd like to find me, I'm at Barely Bookish on literally everything. I am everywhere. You can find me anywhere you'd like. So if you want me I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I think that's it. I have a Tumblr. I don't use it, so maybe not Tumblr, but everything else is free game. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Also, I'm doing writing sprints, so if you are interested in writing or things like that, I've been doing writing sprints every single week on Twitch. I do it sometimes multiple times a week. It kind of just depends on the week. So if you'd like to join that, please consider going to twitch.tv/barelybookish. But yeah, once again, thank you, Candace, for joining me, and thank you all for listening. Our theme song was created by Raphael Crux. Our logo was by my little sibling Sarah. And that's all I've got for you all this week. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!